First, though, random COVID testing for fully vaccinated air travelers resumes next week. That's the program the federal government suspended last month in a bid to reduce long delays at Canada's airports. The testing will now happen at off-site locations. Transport Minister Omar Alghabra says the program is critical, acting as an early warning system for Canada. But with air travel woes still in full swing, is it the right move at the right time? Duncan Dee is a former Chief Operating Officer at Air Canada. He's in Moncton, New Brunswick. Duncan Dee, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Paul.
So, random COVID-19 testing resumes next week, but the testing has been moved off-site, off airport. Your reaction?
Look, I think this is the wrong thing at the wrong time. If viewers have been paying attention, they've seen that Canada has topped the world charts in terms of flight delays over the last few weeks. And so for the government to think that now is the right time to be reintroducing a new complexity into the air transportation system is really mind-boggling.
So, it's inconvenient for travelers, I guess, but does moving it off-site, doesn't that actually help, though, and maybe reduce delays?
Well, no, moving it off-site means that the bottlenecks are not going to be at the airport any longer. They'll be off-site. What it doesn't change is the fact that the airports have reported that the post-COVID pandemic checks at the airports have quadrupled the amount of time it's taken to clear each and every international traveler when they enter Canada versus what it was before the pandemic. A fourfold increase in the amount of time it takes to clear each and every traveler will not change by moving random COVID testing off-site.
And, you talk about it being inconvenient. What do you think? Are travelers likely to comply? And if they don't, how would it be enforced, given staffing is already strained?
I think it's a real question that has no answer. The government, first of all, is going to identify and inform travelers that they've been selected for random COVID testing by email. So that assumes that all these travelers coming for a vacation have a smartphone or access to a computer, and that they have roaming capabilities on their smartphone or that their computer has Wi-Fi access. Second of all, they'll be assuming that emails will be read. Well, when I go on vacation, I put away an away message. So I'm not sure that very many travelers are going to be reading their emails. And then finally, they're hoping that their emails don't get stuck in a spam folder somewhere. This thing is just a recipe for disaster from a traveler perspective. And if you're, for example, a foreign traveler coming to Canada for a week-long vacation, and there's a potential that you test positive and that will require a 10-day mandatory isolation as a result of that positive test, are you going to be traveling to Canada for the summer? Because it really, puts a hamper on your travel plans.
Federal government's view, as you know, is that it's a tool in the fight against COVID and a necessary one, an important one, not least in this case in the fight against potential new variants coming into the country. Do you disagree with that?
Well, if the federal government believes that, it's the only one, because many governments around the world are welcoming tourists as an economic stimulus at a very difficult and challenging economic time. And they're doing so without these mandatory tests and special requirements to enter their countries. What we're seeing in Canada is really now becoming very, very unique on the planet. The United States isn't doing it. The United Kingdom isn't doing it. Many countries in Europe have totally abandoned any COVID testing for travelers. So the fact that the government is seemingly intent on doing this in Canada with very little scientific justification should be a concern to Canadians.
Now, on the sort of broader state of air travel in this country, and look, you've had a window seat on both the government side and the industry side over the years, having worked in both of those. But look, you've been tweeting up a storm this week on the failings of the federal government here. But how much of the current chaos is the responsibility of government, and how much is that on the airlines?
Look, airlines have a direct responsibility for taking care of their customers. That is beyond any shadow of a doubt. Airlines need to take care of their customers. They need to get their customers where they need to go safely and on time and comfortably. And that's not something that anyone is arguing against. What's difficult right now in Canada is we've had over 3 months of government-caused delays at the airports, and no airline on the planet can staff up enough or have enough spare aircraft lying around to make up for those delays that have accumulated over 3 months. You know, the situation we're facing in Canada is not unique from the perspective of delays. We've seen announcements at Heathrow Airport. We've seen delays at Charles de Gaulle in Paris. We've seen cancellations in the US. The thing that makes Canada unique, though, is that we have now topped the global charts in terms of delays. And that's something Canadians need to be concerned about. Yes, this is a global phenomenon, but the fact that Canada is the worst of the worst in terms of on-time performance is not something that we should be cheering for.
Do other countries, do you know, have equivalents of the ArriveCan app? And I just wonder what your thoughts are on that. I hear a lot about that from people I know in America who are going to Canada. They don't understand it. They're not sure what's up with it. And it seems like a complicating factor for many of them. I wonder what your thoughts are on that.
Several countries in the world early on in the pandemic did have contact tracing apps or contact tracing forms on the web, such as Belgium, for example, where you had to provide your contact information in the event that the authorities needed to trace you because of a COVID test or some other health-related reason. Canada is the only one that's developed this app, and it's an app which seems to be intended to survive past the pandemic. And so why is this app causing so much heartache and so much hassle at the airport? It's an international travel app that's available in English, French, and Spanish. You know, as anyone who travels to Canada during the summer knows, those 3 languages don't nearly cover the different types of travelers that come to this country, visiting friends and family during the summer months.
So if you were on the government side right now, what would you have them do? I mean, because look, they've hired more security screening agents. They've added more public health officials. They've tried to take some steps, set up a task force to find solutions to current delays. What would you have them do right now?
Look, given what we've seen in terms of the statistics, the delays that have been world-beating in terms of the number of flights delayed and canceled, what I would do is suspend these pandemic checks until after Labor Day. They've already suspended them for 5 weeks in terms of the random testing at the airports. What's another 50 days or so that they can get their act together? Why are they imposing an app on Canadian travelers, folks coming from around the world to visit Canada, that's only available in English, French, and Spanish? They clearly decided that English and French, the 2 official languages, weren't enough to cover off the number of travelers coming to the country that don't speak the 2 official languages. So they've added Spanish. So what about Mandarin or Punjabi or other languages that many travelers to the country speak, especially during the summer months when they're coming to visit family and friends?
And what would you have the airlines do? I mean, Air Canada cut back about 10% of its daily flights, I think, to ease the delays and cancellations. Doesn't seem to be making much of a difference. What should airlines do to help ease the chaos?
Well, the airlines have already done the heavy lifting, Paul. As you've outlined, Air Canada alone has canceled 9,500 flights in July and August. That's a huge number of flights that, frankly, is causing a lot of inconvenience for travelers who hope those flights would be operating. And so in terms of what heavy lifting needs to be done, that really falls on the federal government, because the federal government has not done much of the heavy lifting so far. They've persisted, despite the numerous suggestions coming from airlines, airports, industry experts, and others, that they're simply unwilling to proceed with any of those suggestions, and they're persisting in insisting on the checks that are now really past due.
Duncan Dee, thank you so much. I appreciate the time. May your next flight be on time.
Thanks, Paul.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.